This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. This board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide relief to any person or entity adversely affected by hardships caused by strict interpretation of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Fred Hayes.
Here.
Steve Haber.
Here.
Paul Zine.
Here.
John Halpin.
Here.
Jim Graff.
Here.
Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is audio and videotaped and may be carried live on television tonight. First, I'll outline our procedures. A summary of the appeal is presented by the staff, then the appellant will present its case. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chair. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and/or ask questions of the board after being recognized by the chair. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, may only do so after being sworn in. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium, right here in the middle, after being recognized, speak into the microphone, and state their name, address, and any affiliation to the case. All persons testifying will be limited to 4 minutes unless a board member requests additional time. All testimony is given to the board only. No comments or questions are to be directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. The reason for this is that it is the board's decision rather than a popular vote. The board will only hear new, non-repetitive evidence or questions. Should someone wish to show support of previous testimony, they may do so by following the testimony procedures and stating their support of the previous testimony. Now, will all persons who may give testimony this evening please stand? If you're in doubt, stand. Raise your right hand and swear or affirm. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, let's proceed to the approval of the minutes of the meeting of July 6th. There was two distributions of this in email. Did everyone get especially the second transmission, the changed ones? Okay. Are there any further changes to these minutes? Nope. I have a motion to approve them.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of our meeting on July 6, 2017.
Second the motion.
And that's to be understood as amended.
As amended.
As amended.
Yes, thank you.
And your second is the same?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Haber.
Aye.
Mr. Zine.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Graff.
Abstain.
Mr. Hayes.
Abstain. I'm checking to make sure, yes. Mr. Graff, you were not here either, and that's why both of us abstained. Okay? Let's move then to case 19-2017 BZA. Would the staff please read the summary?
Thank you. The applicant is Ray Johnson, who is the Director of Business Operations. He's representing Anderson High School, Forest Hill School District, who is the property owner. The location is at 7560 Forest Road, and the request is a conditional use approval per Article 5.4 of the Anderson Township zoning resolution for 2 manufactured units to serve as a temporary transportation office on the site. There are also some changes since this plan was previously approved in Case 6, 2016 Board of Zoning Appeals last year. So we'll review the changes as well as the placement of the temporary modular units. The tract size is a little over 39 acres. There's approximately 903 feet of frontage on Forest Road, and this is excluding the baseball field administrative building parcel, which was not included in this particular request. The topography varies. The surrounding uses to the north are B single family, which is the former school district offices and some classroom space. To the south, east, and west are all B single family, and there are single family residences. There is a church directly across the street from the high school, and so there are other uses in the vicinity as well. So again, the proposed development is to construct, or not construct, but to locate 2 manufactured units, one size 35 feet, 4 inches by 60 to be a temporary office unit, and the other is 12 feet by 56 feet to be a restroom unit to be used strictly for the Forest Hills District Transportation Office. The previous transportation offices have been demolished, and plans are still to add a parking lot in that particular location, which was reviewed by you last year. And we can go through the site plan, it might be easier to see. This is the location map. Oh, I forgot. Let me get my pointer going. So again, this is Forest, which circles around to the back of or to the side as well. So this is Forest. Beachmont is up to the north of the slide. This is an aerial view of the site. The former transportation offices were located here, and that has been since removed. This is a topography site. Currently, there is work, which you'll see in the photos. There is a detention basin that is located in this vicinity, and that is being reworked. That is why there's a temporary construction entrance exit that will be removed once the work in the detention basin is finished. And to go back to the location of the modular units will be approximately in this location at the end of where the buses are currently located, and that is part of the district's plans to keep the buses where they are instead of moving them over by the former administration offices, which was presented in 2016. The items that are remaining the same, which will go to a different site plan, it's just a different orientation. This is Forest here. It's hard to see, but the building is here. The darker shade of gray, that is proposed parking area. So this is a parking area that was approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals in 2016 to be along Forest, along with a new entrance off of Forest, a security vestibule, as well as an additional classroom space, which is located here. Those are still moving forward and are under construction, which you'll see in the pictures, and you've probably seen if you've driven by. So that's currently under construction, as well as the auxiliary gym is under construction. And this was the location of the former transportation offices, which have been removed. The plan is for it to remain as parking as presented in 2016, although this area and new parking is being slightly reconfigured to allow for fencing and securing the buses and separating that from the other general parking for students, faculty, and guests. So formerly, the plan you saw before, the parking lots through here were connected. Now they have separate entrances, which will allow for fencing and securing the buses. And again, the location of the modular units would be in this general vicinity. In addition to the plan that you saw in 2016, a sidewalk is being constructed that would connect the northern end of the high school over to the Nyer office buildings behind McDonald's. When the Nyer office building was built as part of their zone change, they were required to allow for an easement to the school district to allow for pedestrian access out to Beachmont at Wolf Angle. Students have always used that crossing there at that intersection, And prior to the construction of the office building, the students were using the shortcut behind Izzy's and First Watch in that building there. Now there is a sidewalk connection from Beachmont Avenue that will tie in to that property that will allow pedestrian access from Beachmont and Wolf Angle area. So this is just another aerial showing the location of the modular units, the proposed modular units. A little more detail of the area we just covered. This, again, is proposed to remain as bus parking. The modular units would be here on a temporary basis, and in the letter, the applicant, Mr. Johnson, stating they wish to have those there for 3 years. And again, this is just reconfiguring of the parking area to accommodate securing the buses. These are all construction photos, and they're a little difficult to understand because it looks like one big construction site. So we'll kind of go through this very quickly, but this is looking generally in the area of where the modular units would be. This is an existing storage building that would remain. This is looking back toward Forest, and again, it's hard to see, but this is a focal point or a reference point. That's the existing maintenance building. Looking again at some of the existing parking area for the buses, looking back toward the high school, toward the north. The high school is back here. This is the fueling station. This is looking back toward the school again. Just different vantage points. This is looking back toward Forest. Forest is here. So with the conditional use, there are standards specific to schools, public and private, which are, the requirements are HL01, P3, and S. And so in the staff report, we go through each of those. H refers to the vehicular use area, and the vehicular use area of the parking lots, again, is changing to accommodate keeping the buses where they are. The curb cuts along Forest are not changing per what you reviewed in 2016. So those are staying the same. The only difference is the parking reconfiguration on the inside. Measures should be taken to minimize the impact of potential nuisances. And noise, odor, vibration, dust on adjacent properties. This was the location of the buses and has been for quite some time, and currently they're just going to leave them in the location. So this, our statement in the staff report was mainly for the modular units. The modular units are being placed back by an existing storage building and back at the end of the lot, which is already screened to residences. So we didn't feel that that would be an impact. The surrounding boundary buffer in the landscaping plan is not changing per the plan. It will be changed slightly to modify a rearrangement of the parking area, but the screening to surrounding adjacent residential uses is remaining the same as it was approved in 2016. Signage is not changing per what was approved in 2016. The freestanding monument sign is being relocated slightly, but it's the same sign. And then lighting is not proposed to be changed as well. And then the other 4 items that the board should review is spirit and intent of the proposal, no adverse effect on adjacent properties, protection of public services, and then finally consistent with adopted plans. And specifically with number 4, consistent with adopted plans, staff reviewed this request in light of the overall Anderson High School improvement, upgrade of the building, the additions, and felt that it was consistent with the comprehensive plan. So the only other recommended condition that we would, if the board chooses to approve this, is specific timing on how long those modular units could be there. The applicant is requesting 3 years, and if you do approve it, we suggest that that condition be placed on there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff?
No.
Nor do I. would the appellant please come forward and present its case?
Hi, I'm back. Yeah, Paul, actually, would you mind going to the one that's the overall site? This one, yeah. When I presented to the board as far as the plan for Anderson High School, the plan at that time, we did not really include in the area 203 at that time. That's where we showed transportation to be, but we knew that we'd be coming back with whatever the proposal was at that point, although we hadn't necessarily landed on that, but that was our plan. We explored within the Forest Hills School District every possible location to move transportation off the Anderson Hills campus. Either it wasn't available or it was too far away from the center of the school district, and we would add, minimally $250,000 to our annual operating expenses for moving adding to the length of the bus routes and so forth. So our plan was to move it over to area where it's 203. As we got into cost estimates there, we found that the cost was going to be upwards of $6.2 million to move it, several hundred yards. That did not seem to make sense. So we decided to leave it where it's at and, create some separation there, eliminate the driveway coming in. Everything else is staying the same as far as the parking goes. As Paul said, the house has been demolished. That parking lot is going to be undertaken the week of August 22nd. It will be completed for the start of the school year. Area 203 is actually being asphalted as I speak. The sidewalk has been completed with the exception of about 5 feet of it because we have some underground utility we need to address. The tie into the Nair property, that sidewalk's done. We have all the lighting. There's lighting that goes all the way the length of that sidewalk. That's all roughed in at this point. The driveway in front of Anderson High School, they will start on that. They've actually started on some of the base. They will be, working on that next week. Yeah, I think next week is when that starts. The circle driveway in front of where the auditorium is, we've actually poured all the sidewalk to that area, and they're starting to put in the base there. So this wasn't necessarily our intent when we passed the bond issue in 2014. Our idea was to take it off the campus, but it just became cost prohibitive to do that. So we're going to want to leave it in the same place. Our board, we had a very public meeting back, I tried to look for the date, but back in either January or late fall, invited the community to come in to explain why we were making the change here. That we just couldn't in good conscience to spend $6 million to move it from the south side of the campus to the north side of the campus. As we said, we're going to be replacing fencing around there. The diagram shows where the detention pond is at this point. We've actually run into a lot of bad soil back in that area, so that's why the road was put in. That temporary road is only to be used to haul that material out at this point. All the dirt's back there to put that in, but we're really kind of refocusing our efforts on some of the rest to get ready for the start of school. The other thing I would add is that we're not making any changes in the lighting. The fueling station is staying the same. We're actually relocating a sanitary drain that is literally from me to your podium here, your desk, from the fuel pump. So that's going to be relocated to a much safer place at this point. And we're going to have probably fewer buses there, and we've got a $500,000 grant from the federal government for replacing 11 of those diesel buses with propane buses. So that's kind of where we're at this point. So it's not where we wanted to be 2 years ago, but we have found that this is really the only place that we have at this point. So.
Questions of the appellant?
You mentioned this is a temporary.
Yes, our board president, Dr. Heiss, made it very clear that when the board approved this, is that this is strictly temporary, and depending upon where we're at in completion, this would either be done possibly the summer of 2019, but no later than the summer of 2020, because basically where it's at, we really don't want to demo one and build another during the course of the school year, because the new one, the replacement would be probably in the general proximity to that, but we haven't even begun to design that. But our board has made kind of put a stake in the ground that this is temporary, and they're going to have a permanent structure back there.
Okay. But you don't have any plans or anything
No.
of those created yet?
No, I've
So
got
you need
other
some
stuff on
runway
my-
in order to,
Right, we need something temporary at this point
Okay.
to be able to house it. And the triple wide provides us with, I want to say about, probably about 2,700 square feet, something like that maybe. The house, we had about 1,900 square feet in there. We may have as many as 65 people in there at any point in time, so it's going to actually not only house the offices, but it's a break room from the drivers as they come and go. They check in and so forth. The 2 units will be connected by a deck, and we will have male and female restrooms in the adjoining facility. Those will be tied into the sanitary sewer line that runs diagonally across the property back there.
3 years be sufficient enough to,
Yeah.
is that, that we put it?
Yeah, all the asphalt work will be done this summer. So really, it's a matter of just saying, because the project's going to, linger on probably into late 2019, we want to get everything else done at that point and then undertake that. So probably, like I said, it's probably going to be more likely the summer of 2020. We'd be putting together plans, probably coming back here for, be my last one at that point, because I'm leaving not long after that. But for another presentation as far as that building goes. But the idea is to put it back there if another location for transportation doesn't become available in the interim.
Okay.
So.
When you
And
say,
the lease we have with ModSpace, I'm sorry, is 3 years. We have 2 years, and we have an option for a third at the same price.
when you say project, you talk about the overall project at Anderson High School,
Yes.
all the work that's going to be done
Yeah.
past the roads and other construction and things like
Right, all
that?
the road work is going to be done before the start of the school. I mean, there may be some of the landscaping and so forth, but, our goal is we have to have all that asphalt work done before the start of the school. We were required by Cincinnati Water Works to increase the water line size, which we've done at this point. We actually have begun to tie in. We got about half the residences down Forest tied in yesterday and today, and we hope to get that completed before the end of this week. We've had to replace several of the water pits out there. We're getting inspections on those tomorrow, and we actually began backfilling those today. So there's been a lot happening over there. So, yeah.
Did I understand right that these manufactured units, the view of those from Forest will be
You won't see 'em.
protected from
You can't-
the buses?
It's physically impossible to see them from Forest. Much of the fence line, as you look where it says 201 up here, the line above that is being replaced. Actually, where the former driveway coming in the property, I've actually met with the family that lives in the house there. We're going to be taking down their existing wood fence. They've given us permission to do that, so our new fence will go on the property line. That wood fence is not on their property line. It's actually about 1.5 feet inside the line. So if we put our fence inside of that, we're going to have a gap there that's going to be a maintenance nightmare. So I've met with the Bodys. We've got an easement for them to sign. They've agreed to it. We will take that down, put the fence there. They're more than pleased with the type of fence and it's the same thing we've talked about here. And we'll do the same thing with their wood fence that runs north to south behind their property. And our property line actually juts back a little bit, goes a little bit more west when you get just beyond their property. But we're replacing fence, down through there with light fence. And I think that's all part of what we brought before. So none of that's changed.
So this fence in their property is about where the C is in C201?
No. If you see the new parking that Paul mentioned where the house used to be, there's a perpendicular line going towards Forest Road. That's where that fence will be. So it's where the right there. That fence right there will be new. And like I said, their fence is actually, and that's right on our property line. Their existing fence is anywhere from 18 to 24 inches. It's kind of at a slant. That's the way it was when they bought the house. It's not the fence they put up. But I've met with Mr. Bodie several times, explained to him what's going on. He has no problem. I've got an easement I'm taking over to him tomorrow to sign to do that. So,
I have a couple of extra questions. The plans that came with the modular units are extensive.
I was going to drown you with paperwork. I figured I'd give you more than less.
Terrific work.
I've
but-
never done that.
But it calls for extensive peering. Are you planning to do that?
That's all part of it.
It is, even though the units are already in place, you've got to move them out to put
Well,
the...
they're there simply because we've not done any work. But ModSpace has a large school project where they've got to get a lot of units elsewhere later this month, so we said, that's fine. Bring them in, just set them there, just so we've got them there. The dirt that Paul showed you, we've moved out of the parking lot, so most of that dirt's gone now because it was going back to be used for the detention pond. As we take out the bad soils, we've already got the new soils that we brought from Wilson when we did all the excavating there, so we got free dirt to bring over. But yeah, they're there, but they just wanted to get them there so they were, on site. I dropped off the permit to Bruce Grace Tuesday of this week, so they're already processing it. I think they worked out with Paul that it was okay for them to start processing that. Pending this meeting, I brought over a set of plans for Rick Martin yesterday. I had those delivered to me, and I brought those over here yesterday for him to begin the review process.
Okay, so it will be substantial and could very well be permanent by the permanence of the structures, but you're fine with a endpoint of fall of 2000?
I think our board would be just fine with that, because it basically takes our board, who's committed, the board that we have today is committed to that, and will also then commit the future board.
Lock
I don't
in.
want to have to come back here and ask.
So a restriction that we would put on it of
Yes, sir.
September 2020 would be fine?
Yeah, I would say if you would want to put start of school 2020. That would probably be a little bit more accurate. I don't know what that date
Okay.
is. We haven't set the school calendar, but I think that would be fine.
Okay. And another one of the conditional use issues is the lighting. There's no change in the lighting except for the porch lighting on the modular
What
units.
we'll be required to have is we will have that, kind of like the schools. We can work with the directional of that lighting.
Pointing down,
Yeah.
essentially?
And we're going to be replacing some of the light fixtures with LED light fixtures. So, but again, we're going to be doing we're not going to allow the lighting to flood over. There's no increased number of poles there.
Okay.
Right.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
The only other
More?
thing I would add is that, what you may or may not be aware is we worked out an arrangement with the township as far as the sidewalk goes in the future. So since, we're not putting, it's the same thing. While we're not putting in the sidewalk, we've committed to funding of the sidewalk at a future date that, if the sidewalk's put in, it wraps around the property. So our board's already acted on that and provide that document to Paul.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of granting this conditional use? Seeing none, is there anyone that wishes to speak against this conditional use? Yes, sir?
My name is Tony DiPuccio. I'm at 7625 Forest Road. The biggest concern that I have is that when you granted the first variance on this, a significant part of that was to move those buses way away. And if you want to get up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning during the school year, it's very noisy over there. There's a lot of traffic because you've got buses coming in and out, but there's odors from the diesel fuel, which will partly be relieved by natural gas, or running on natural gas. It's partly going to probably require a new fueling operation, though, as well. And there's noise. The noise is not just from the trucks running, which they do, particularly in cold weather, but also from the backup horns you have. And if you can imagine, that goes on a lot because they're moving buses around, they're shuffling them around, they're trying to get them going. So that was the one real positive thing when I attended the last meeting where you granted the ordinance about the buses being moved away from there. it would have been a big, big improvement. And now it's like, well, I guess I'm not hearing a lot of confidence that it's going to be temporary for 3 years, that 3 years comes, or 2 years comes, or even a year come from now, they may be coming back and saying, well, we've looked at it yet again, and now we've decided that, no, we're going to keep them there, that's going to be our permanent facility, we're going to replace the temporary buildings with permanent buildings. That is my concern with it. So, again, the first variance was sold with this idea of moving the buses, and now it's not going to happen. And it may never happen, frankly, from what I'm hearing. So that's primarily where I'm coming from. And in terms of, you know, that's the noise and and I don't know what how the lighting's going to turn out. Right now, there's big issues with the lighting, particularly from the stadium. My backyard is 1,100 feet away, and when the stadium lights are turned on, it lights up the trees in my backyard. And the same thing with the noise. I don't have to go to the stadium to hear what's going on in the stadium. I think both of those are correctable, and I had approached the school district a number of years ago, prior administration, I'll say it was, and was going to, they were going to get back in touch with me, and I never heard anything on it. So that's my primary concern with it. So, thank you.
Questions of this witness?
How long have you lived at your address?
Since 1979.
79?
And so what has happened over the years, obviously, is things have expanded out, and it's gotten way bigger than it was before. And now, you know, with the new traffic flow patterns, it's cutting into the front, what was the original buffer area and things of that sort. New facilities have been added. It's getting more active. I mean, it's gotten more active there, I guess. So, and with that comes more noise, more traffic on it. So, I think that's it.
Other questions? Mr. Graff?
I was just going to ask, can you point out where approximately your home is with respect to this site map that we're looking at? Is it on here?
Maybe the aerial.
It's across the street, isn't it?
Yeah, it's across the street, yeah, but it's down further south, I guess that is. Yeah, I guess
the
it's off the
doctor's
map, I'm
offices.
sorry. It's, move it up, just up a little bit, Paul. Right, down just a little bit, right there. And so while that looks like a far distance from the stadium, and it is, I measured it, it's 1,100 feet, it's not just a faint light. I mean, you can stand there and you get a shadow off yourself standing there.
But
And that's in the backyard, and the house is a lot closer.
there are homes in between your home and the
Yes.
school, correct?
Yes, but the lighting, which you would expect with the stadium lighting, is very high.
Other questions of this witness? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak against granting this conditional use? Come,
I'm just not clear about...
can we have your name and address, please, ma'am?
Yes, my name is Mary Falconieri, and I live at 1013 Stream Ridge Lane. My question is, there are two modulars, but okay, maybe is that them within that rectangle?
That's the planned location. That's not them, I don't think. This is an older picture, aerial view.
Well, that's what I didn't understand. I saw one rectangle, but there are two buildings, so I wasn't sure of the location of two separate buildings. I was curious about that. And also, what is the exterior, I mean, what is the exterior appearance like? Is it looks basically a trailer?
It's a modular office building.
Like a trailer?
Yes,
But
but
that would, I just wondering where the two buildings are,
they're right inside that rectangle,
and how are they oriented?
the same way that those two colored things are, that I don't even know what they are.
One's a school bus and one is a Well, actually, I think they're both school buses. One just has a white roof and one has an orange roof.
Okay.
It's a small storage building, and it's a school bus, the white is.
Is that meant to represent the two buildings?
Well, both buildings in the deck will be contained inside that red box.
The entrance will be oriented towards the parking area, I would think.
And then eventually that would be replaced by one permanent building?
Permanent structure.
Thank you.
Mhm. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak against granting this conditional use? Seeing none, we have any further questions, or are you ready to close the,
Do you want to have Mr. Johnson come back up and provide additional information?
thank you. Yes, please.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear, and I don't want to misrepresent anything to this gentleman. What's going to be replaced in 3 years is the modulars will become a permanent building. As of today, there's no plan to move the buses off the compound in 3 years. If during the interim we do find a location, I think the school district is committed to looking at taking that off there. But I'm not saying, I didn't want anybody to think in here right now that I'm saying that those buses will come off. The temporary building will be replaced with a permanent building, and like I said, if we have an opportunity to move them off, Scott Prebles, our superintendent, is committed to do that. It was just at a cost of $6 million to move it from one side to the other. It just did not seem to make sense. And like I said, Scott had a meeting that he had over at Anderson High School in the media center to address this, and I don't know that we've ever met before, but I've returned, any neighbor that's ever called about things that I'm aware of, I've returned a phone call. So I'm just saying is that if you reach out. Pardon? It was not. Okay, well, no, I just wanted to make sure you knew that that's not the way I do things. So, like I said, this is a last resort. We spent over a year exploring other opportunities. When we came here, it was our intent to move it over there. But we hadn't decided on that because the most important thing at that point was get the renovation of Anderson High School underway, knowing full well we would come back to this. It was our plan all along until late 2016 when we were getting cost estimates in that just continued to grow. So it was the relocation of the fuel pumps, it was relocation and a new bus garage and all that. So,
How long has the buses been parking there?
gosh, they've been there for decades. I don't know that they've ever been parked anywhere else. And yes, there's, the compound has grown, but our fleet of buses has also reduced over the period of time. I've been with the district for 15 years, and we've reduced the number of buses probably by 15 over my period of time here. We just don't have as many kids riding the bus. So as we've been able to reduce it, and we've done such. Our plan is that any non-essential vehicle or vehicle that's not used frequently, we're actually going to be, moving over. So if we have a dump truck. So we don't use a dump truck all the time. We'll probably park that over to Nagel to try and free up some of the space to pull more of it back there. We're going to have a new fence separating that compound, which was on the plan, from the rest of the compound, with the rest of the parking and so forth. So, and the last piece of the asphalt work out front will be including a turn lane to help the congestion on Forest Road.
So these, for at least the last 15 years, these buses have been all at this location in Anderson, maybe oriented differently, not in the same spot.
They've been oriented exactly as you see them here. All those spaces have been filled in. All we have now is we had a fleet of upwards of 90 buses when I started in 2002, and we've reduced it down to, probably in the upper 70s at this point. We've begun replacing diesel buses with propane buses. We've got 4 of them in the fleet now. Like I said, we've got a grant for $500,000, and we're going to be replacing 11 more of them here in the next, 6 to 9 months.
So busing actually started at the school, though, in probably the mid-'60s when Lyndon Johnson brought along that.
Yeah.
So I guess buses have been there for
Right.
quite a long time.
Right, and
Since
we're
before
busing-
1979.
Right, we're busing not only for our 9 schools, but we have upwards of about over 2 dozen other schools that we're required to bus to. So we're busing for IHM, McNick, GA, St. Ursula Villa. I mean, you name it. There are a lot of places we're required to. We have about 1,500 kids that we're responsible for transporting
Okay.
outside of our own students. So.
Other questions of the appellant? Nothing? Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any other questions of staff, or are you ready to close the public hearing on this case?
I'm ready to close.
Ready to close? The public hearing on this particular case is hereby closed. We will, the board will debate the issue later on, but we will hear the public hearing of the second case tonight first. The board, can the staff please review the summary for case number 20-2017?
Yes, Rachel is going to present this case.
Okay, the second case up for consideration this evening is case 20-2017, BZA. The applicant is Sean Calton on behalf of MAS Residential Partners, the property owners of 5077 Signal Hill Lane. The property is zoned A residence. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow a new single-family residence to have a front yard setback of 30 feet where 50 feet is required, and side yard setbacks of 5 and 9 feet where 15 feet is required per the Anderson Township zoning resolution. This is a map of the property. It is located, I have a laser pointer here, but I can throw it up here. This is Signal Hill Lane right here. It has approximately 29 feet of frontage on Signal Hill Lane. This is an aerial map of the property. As you can see right now, it's vacant and it's mostly a wooded area. This is a topography map of the site, and as you can see, it kind of steadily goes down south of the site and then gets steeper in the back. This is kind of difficult to see, but this is the lot here in reference to the Signal Hill subdivision. This is a site plan of where the house is going to be located. This is where the house is going to be located. This is where the 30-foot setback is. This is where the 9-foot setback is from the side and the 5-foot setback is from the side. You can see that it's still 150 feet away from Signal Hill Lane. And this is going to be what the house will look like. It's very similar to the residential properties located within the subdivision already. These photos are kind of difficult to see exactly where the site will be located, but this is looking down at 5073 Signal Hill Lane right here. This is down that shared driveway, so the property will be back here. This is, if you go down farther, this is the pool for 5079 Signal Hill Lane, and the property is going to be built back in this densely wooded area. This is just farther back. It's hard to see. It's going to be within here. But as you can see, the site kind of slopes downward back towards the south right now. This is looking up towards Signal Hill Lane. This is 5075 right here in the upper left-hand corner. And the house will be lower, so you won't actually be able to see most of it from the street itself. Staff is of the opinion that the property in question may not yield a reasonable return without the variance. The house will be approximately 150 feet away from the road, causing little to no impact on the neighborhood. The house will be approximately 30 to 40 feet lower than the street level. And the property is going to start at about where the lots adjacent to it on the east and west side end, where the back of their properties are. Due to the physical characteristics of the lot itself, putting it back any farther may cause the price of building the residence to go up. The variance is not substantial, and the essential character of the neighborhood will not be greatly altered as a result of the variance. The variance will not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. The property owner's predicament may not be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance. And the spirit of intent of the zoning requirement would be observed and justice done by granting the variance. And staff is of the opinion that the design of the proposed residence is consistent with the style of houses along Signal Hill and Skytop Lanes. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions of staff?
Just a clarification, the report mentions lot number 24, and this one's is lot 22, and
Yes.
assuming that's just a...
What was submitted to us was lot 22, but everything that we have said that it's actually lot 24. So it's listed as lot 22, but it is, in some of the photographs, but it is lot 24.
Okay.
Other questions of staff? Would the appellant please step forward to present the case?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Sean Calton. I'm representing MES Residential Partners, who is the owner of the land. The land's been vacant for, he told me, since 2004 when they were building other houses in the area. The peninsula shape of the lot is probably, and the slope of it are the two biggest factors in trying to build a house, which I'm trying to do. I staked out, I had Bayer Becker stake out the land, and we tried working with them to, on different scenarios on how to place the land with topography, the main issue, especially if you look at the very back left of the house on how, if you go back to that other slide. I'm sorry, yeah, the back left, you can start seeing the topography starts going down pretty severely. So trying to keep, with respects to both neighbors who have existing houses, beautiful houses I should say, you know, trying to keep within a fair distance to them and their properties at the same time, keeping the integrity of, you know, the wooded, on the left-hand side, the wooded left-hand side of 5079, that would still be intact. The house would still be the farthest positioned house off the street in that entire development. And you can see from the pictures earlier, there's about a 30 to 40 foot drop off from the road. So even if you're sitting in your car, you probably might see the top of the roof of my house if everything was accepted. It benefits the township primarily for this house to be built. Obviously, it'd be mutually beneficial. It would yield a reasonable return for the township. I'd be able to build this house in a not a cost efficient, but keep the cost down as much as I can. My factors outside of topography is it is heavily wooded. I try to keep as many of the trees around the property and off to the side as possible. So tree removal, I'm still going to have to bring in a substantial amount of gravel, a substantial amount of fill. I'm going to have to increase the size of my basement walls. So there is a pretty substantial lot prep cost on my end. And to keep it feasible, I needed as close to the front as possible. And with that 30-foot setback comes a 9-foot side setback variance and a 5-foot side setback variance. So if you have any questions for me.
Questions for the appellant?
So what you're saying with regards to where the house is laid out there, if you were to go, you know, to the right and down some towards the word lot 22 and or straight down to the bottom of this page, both of those situations becomes a great issue for you.
Yes.
Moving any farther back down.
Basically moving any farther back would prevent me from building the house on that property. I can only go trust what the surveyors who I've spoken with, the builders I've spoken to on numerous occasions. You know, they're throwing, I mean, it'd be tens of thousands of dollars extra the farther it has to keep going back, just because of the slope of the lot.
So where's the home that has the pool?
It's the one it's above the property, it's 5079. So if you actually look at that plan, if you go back to it, it actually has it, right there it says, pool. But it's probably, that's about,
The aerial view, what might be one.
The house is
There it
much closer to the road.
Okay, it's way up there.
correct.
Okay.
So that's 5079. I thought, you said earlier, the neighbor, the shared driveway is 50, I believe 5075, if I'm correct. That's who has a shared driveway, correct. So I'd still be far enough, in my estimation, I'd still be far enough from 5075, as far as the side setback requirement would be entailed. And then, like I said, I'd still be able to keep much of the integrity, like I said, of the woods, that would shield both sides of the property, as much as I could, at least.
How close are you to the house 5075, would you say? Looking past the 5-foot border, property line?
And honestly, I'd be guessing. You'd probably have to go to that scaled map to,
Kind of figure it.
I'd even hate to throw a guess out. I mean,
Pretty far?
yeah, more than reasonable. It'd be more so than, I know other houses in that development. There's some that are a little bit closer, but yeah, it's a very reasonable distance apart. And if you look there, my house would be looking at their side and in the back. It actually, my house would even start until where their house would basically be ending.
When they were showing pictures, they showed an electrical box.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where approximately your house was going to be?
Behind that. There's an electrical house, yeah. So
you'd be south of
basically,
that.
if you go past that electrical box, some of that land in the grass to the left is actually, when I got it surveyed, that's part of the property in hand, but it'd be past that. It'd be where those woods start, more or less.
And so the photograph that was showing the other house,
So you can see the stake right there.
Yeah, there's
So you can
property
see
line.
The stakes right there.
okay.
One to the left, and then it kind of, that's where, at that point, I believe it starts veering at like a 45-degree angle.
And the closest house is on the left side there. This
Would
house.
be, yeah, where that driveway is, there's a house that would be,
It's not that house. That's the one on the
no,
street.
that house that you see in that picture is 50.
It's that house.
It's that house right there.
Okay. So that house is to your right or left? Stage
house would be
right?
to the left.
Stage right or stage left?
If you were looking out the front door of my proposed house, that would be to the left.
Okay.
And then the other house is on the,
Far away.
past these shrubs, and it's, 40, 50 feet from the road. So it's up there, it's close to the road.
Okay.
I'd be closer to their pool house than I would be,
Yeah.
or their pool cabana than I would be.
That's it for me.
Other questions of the appellant? I do have a question on this scale drawing. There's two different scales on it. The scale of 1 to 30, 1 inch to 30 feet is probably the drawing of the house right above that scale. But the rest of the drawing, I think, is 1 inch to 60 feet. I think. Am I misreading that?
No, I think you're right.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
house, they wanted to show what the house would be to scale that, so, yeah, it's a little misrepresentation. That just shows the house to scale, and then, but the rest of the map, as far as the topography map goes, is what you referred to.
1 inch to 60 feet, so from one corner of your house to the corner of the 5075 there, it looks to be at least 60 feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
Maybe
want to
more.
throw out a number. I mean, if I had to guess, it'd be 50, 60, maybe 70 feet.
Yep.
And yeah, it's their entire side yard too, so.
Okay. And for clarification, you don't own the property
I do
yet?
not own the property. I've done more than I ever thought of due diligence on trying to build on this land. It's now become feasible, so that's where all the research came in as far as how I could get this house built at a reasonable cost. And that's the most important thing, a reasonable. I'm still investing a good amount of money because the lot still has good slope to it. It still has a lot of trees. So the lot prep is still going to be significant. It's just I'm trying to keep it within reason.
And if we were not to grant this variance, you may walk away from the deal, because it's getting
I would have to. I couldn't afford to.
getting too expensive.
Yeah, it would get too expensive. I mean, at that point, you're talking about procuring possibly something. I don't even want to get into that.
Okay. Any other questions of the appellant? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of granting this variance? Seeing none, is there anyone wishing to speak against granting this variance? Seeing none, any further questions, or are you ready to close the public hearing on this case? Okay, public hearing on case 20-2017 is hereby closed. The board will now begin debating one case at a time and taking a straw vote. And at this point in time, you're quite welcome to stay and watch the debate, but there is no further testimony from the public. Who wants to start us off on case number 19-2017, the school district case?
I'd say I don't see a problem with it. It's been there since I'd say the late 60s, and it's a necessary evil, if you will, and they need the office space to accommodate serving the buses and getting them taken care of. So I'd be in favor of it.
Others?
I agree with the sentiment. It's, they've explored other areas, and the cost to move it, even within the same site seems pretty excessive. We know how hard it was for the schools to get that bond passed, so to spend extra money where we don't have to. I think it's best, it's been there for a while, so you can stay there until they decide otherwise.
You're saying buses?
Buses, yeah.
How are the modulars?
Yeah, the modulars, it's part and parcel with that as well, too, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I'm agreeing with the sentiment is that we have a situation that's been there for some time. There's been testimony about the stadium, which I don't think is germane to what we're trying to address here. So I want to make sure that we remove that from any consideration. Is that what we have here is a conditional use variance for a couple of temporary modulars, which I think, given the time frame of September till September 2020 is completely appropriate.
And also add to that the addition of the sidewalk connecting to the property at 7681 Beachmont Avenue. I find that to be acceptable.
Right.
Say that again?
There's a sidewalk proposed, a new sidewalk connection to
Oh,
the Nair property.
yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
also in agreement with that, in favor of that.
And that's going along where McDonald's is that correct? That sidewalk?
Correct.
Mr. Graff?
I think if there was an issue, the main issue would be the visibility of these manufactured buildings to the road or to the public, and I've seen some construction of manufactured units that look very high quality before, and there's some that pull up on wheels and they look like they're not roadworthy, much less worthy of living in or occupying. So they are nestled back quite a bit off the road. I think we heard that they were back there near where that storage unit I think is located now or in the general area, but on the other side of where the buses are parked, which have been there for quite some time. So that's not an issue as far as the location goes. I'm in agreement.
Yeah, I agree. I would have preferred to get the noise of the buses up closer to Beachmont Avenue where noise is less of a problem. But I would not be in favor of investing $6 million to do just that. So I think we are not only looking at the conditional use of the modular unit, which as long as we make sure that they are temporary, I think I'm fine with that. But we're also changing the location of the buses at the same time. But I think that's a reasonable decision to make with the price tag that comes along with it. Yeah, I think that the condition of having the modular unit be completely replaced and off-site and gone by the start of the school in the fall of 2020, I think is a reasonable restriction. And the other one that I think we should specify is that, in general, I completely agree with the staff's finding, but the new lighting in the porches there, the conditional use Article S, we should stipulate that that be pointed down and that there be no lighting that bleeds over off-site. Because it is at the edge of the site, of the school district site. Any other discussion on it? It seems like we are generally in favor of this. Can I have a straw vote motion to that effect?
I move that we approve the request, condition to the buildings be there only for 3 years till the start of the school 2020, and also that the lighting on the porch be pointing down so as not to add to the overall light to the neighborhood. And let's see, I need a little help on the rest of the verbiage.
I would add to that the additional sidewalk connection too.
And also the addition of the new sidewalk connection to the Nair property at 7681 Beachmont Avenue be included and approved.
Reference drawings dated substantial conformance with drawings dated, I have July 12th. I think that's the only date that I see on here.
There's a July 13th as well, the overall site plan.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, July
Okay.
13th on this drawing.
That's July 12th and 13th.
Yeah, July 12th and July 13th, yep. Yeah, I'm going to second the motion.
Can we can I propose a friendly amendment that the construction be completed, this is an unusual one for us, the construction be completed by the start of school 2017, and that removal be completed by the fall of 2020.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Normally we have 1 year, but this ought to be done by the time school starts.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm assuming it can be.
The units are there.
Units are there, so I guess it'll get done.
If I understand that, we're talking about the construction being completed in the next 3 weeks, that's what, is that what we're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. I think they're going to make every attempt to do that, but if there's a snag or something at the building department or any other process,
Well, they don't have plumbing, water, and sewer hooked up there yet, do they?
They're ready to hook it up. Power as well.
He said the waistline was there.
Yeah.
I totally agree that something that says, get this done, can we give them to the end of September or something like that, or?
You okay with that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like where you're going. I don't want to have them into I mean, this is a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not doing the project.
Well, they're going to get all of the asphalt done and have the buses ready to go before school starts.
Yeah.
So this is a relatively minor addition on top of that.
Right, right.
But end of September,
Are
I'm
you
fine.
good, end of
I'm fine with
September?
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's staff's opinion on that, Paul?
I would just, I don't know how necessary it is. That's what they're going to do regardless. So the removal date, I think, is the key.
Well, I guess from our standpoint, I mean, if for some reason these plans change drastically and they've got these storage units there, the idea would not be just sitting over in the corner doing nothing for some period of time. I guess that's kind of
Well,
the...
let's just at least give them through September, make sure that.
Yeah, give them that good time.
I know they have every intention of getting them up and open before school, but if there's a snag at the building department or any other snag along with their other construction, it could delay, so.
Yep. Any further discussion? We clear on the elements of the approval? Okay. We have a motion that is substantially in agreement with staff's findings, with a couple of minor additions, relatively minor additions. The installation by the beginning of September, the removal by the start of school in the fall of 2020.
Are we giving them installation by the end of September?
Yes.
Installation by the end of September?
Yes.
Yeah.
2017.
2017, yes. And the additional porch lighting to be pointed down or controlled so that there's no light distribution off the property. We have that motion on the floor and seconded. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Zine?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Brett?
Aye.
Mr. Case?
Aye. We will, just so that you understand what we will do, we will actually write that up and approve that detailed writing later on, but we'll move next to the other case and take a straw vote in that before we go to the formality of the documentation. Who wants to start us off on case number 20?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the amount of work that's gone into this potential project, and let me first say that I am in favor of granting the variance. I appreciate the amount of work that's gone into the work here in order to make this lot workable. We talk about in our variance that it can't, the appellant's predicament can't be obviated by some other means except moving the proposed location as forward, I guess, as to the northwest as much as possible. I think there are some other factors that it is, I think, somehow 344 feet away from Signal Hill Lane. It's located down the hill. It looks like to me another 4 feet lower than the adjacent house. So even though we're requesting and I'm recommending that we grant the variance as far as the front setback and the side yard setback, I think there's a lot of factors of which I just mentioned that help mitigate the imposition of the house onto the neighbors. I think it's the right thing to do.
I would agree with that. Costs to do anything otherwise would not work for the applicant and could possibly just end up, having that land sit there and do nothing.
I'm okay with it. I think that it makes sense, and I don't think it's encroaching on the neighbors, and even though it's close to their line, it's far enough away that there's not, in my opinion, an encroachment, and I imagine, and if there were a concern, I would have expected one of the neighbors would have been here to say so. And so, by their absence, I'd say that they're not going to have a problem. So, for me, it's a nice addition.
You know, I think one thing that hasn't been mentioned, I think it's important to note that there have been variances granted on several homes in this development prior to now. To some extent, a precedence has been set because of the nature of the property does not make this conducive. It's not like we're talking a piece of flat land and a ball field. It makes it difficult to build on. And for these people, I was there today, I walked the property, and for people to make this kind of investment in an area that others would say, I don't think so. You know, that's something to be said for that. Of course, this is a very nice development. And I, just to concur with what was said, that, you know, if this individual doesn't follow through with this, if we don't grant the variance, they don't follow through with this, it might be years, if ever, that property ever get developed on again. Clearly, I would expect that another architect would look at this and have some of the same conclusions. You know, you don't want to put twice the value of a house in to build a house on a hill to make that work. So they're certainly, they've demonstrated a commitment to invest in this in hopes that there's a return there. Otherwise, the money that's been invested has been squandered.
This senses a full agreement with granting this variance, and I completely agree too, and especially in light of what Mr. Graff just said, is that this neighborhood is not anywhere near typical. There are many variances in terms of distances off the setbacks and side yard setbacks as well. And so it's going to be, it is typical of the neighborhood, and still a nicely developed neighborhood, that if we don't grant this variance this time, the next person would be coming in asking for essentially the same thing. And why not now? Either that or it stays there, it stays vacant forever. So I think now is the time to go ahead and move forward with a person that is ready to use the property to best advantage. Are there any restrictions or contingencies that we want to place on this?
It's the usual start within a year and completed within 2 years.
That would be normal for us, and I guess that's probably reasonable. The appellant sounded like they were ready to move ahead or back away, depending on the decision here.
I'm a little surprised they didn't offer to put a pool in the backyard, but other than that, at least a waterfall.
Yeah.
I remember in the one case we had a number of months ago that was higher up, that we actually granted that request with the garage actually facing Signal Hill, which I think was the right thing to do. And yet there was something in their covenants, as I remember, that said that, or some unwritten rule or something that said that the garages couldn't face the street. And we've got a solution here that satisfies that, which in effect pushes the house back. So I like the appreciation of and I don't remember if that was a covenant or a rule, to abide by that, which in a sense pushes the house back a little bit more.
Yeah, I recall that case, and that was actually testimony that was given opposing granting the setback variance, because there was a setback issue along with the garage fronting the street.
Right.
But there was already precedent that was right across the street that there was a garage facing. And actually, yeah, as you take a look at the detail here, the garage would not be facing, the garage is facing
Correct.
the woods.
Right.
So the only restrictions would be the normal of in compliance with the, in general compliance with the drawings submitted with the, on July 14th with the application, and construction to begin in 1 year and completed within 2. Okay? Any further discussion on it? Can I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion in the matter of case number 20-2017 BZA regarding 5077 Signal Hill Lane, where the applicant is seeking to construct a new single-family home with a front yard setback of 30 feet where 50 feet is required, and sides yard setbacks of 5 and 9 feet where 15 is required. I move that this application be approved in substantial agreement with staff findings, with the additional conditions that the plans and drawings dated July 14th, 2017 be substantial compliance with those plans, and the construction begin within 1 year and be completed within 2 years.
Second.
Nicely done, Mr. San.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? We have a nice, clean motion on the table and a second. The secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Hager?
Aye.
Mr. Zani?
Aye.
Mr. Halper?
Aye.
Mr. Brad?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye. We will now adjourn for a short period of time while the staff gets the detailed documentation ready, but we will stay here to complete the approval of both of those granting those variances. We're back in session. Mm-hmm.
Okay, L, second line, odor, vibration, and dust on adjacent properties.
Good catch.
Is it farther down where we talk about the lighting being pointed down, or is that here?
That'll be in the,
I put it as a condition.
All right.
So this section is largely copied from the staff report, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't really make any changes.
Okay. number 1 there, Paul, can you change that plan to plans? Because it's multiple.
Item 3, did we say shielded from properties, or didn't we talk about that being, the lighting being pointed downward rather than out?
They can, yeah, as long as they shield it from adjacent properties, I think that's fine. They can either point it down or just point it away from the properties.
Yeah, how they do that's fine.
Yeah,
You ready for a motion?
I think so, if everybody else is.
Yep.
Any other changes that anybody wants to make?
Mr. Chairman, regarding case 19-2017 BZA, I move that we approve and journal.
Second the motion.
No further discussion? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Baker?
Aye.
Mr. Zani?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Brett?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye. We've got 4 more minutes for me to make the Veterans Memorial dedication.
In Mount Washington?
Right outside there.
No, it's right
Oh.
downstairs,
Okay.
so it's still feasible. But looking pretty slim.
Is that to all veterans or just to,
It's all this
All of them.
okay, good. Phew. That means I'm included.
It's very nice. You should look
Sure.
at it before you leave.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
chair for it.
That's right. I was a good clerk when I was in the Army.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 line down, where it says Article 3.3 C2. At the end, we have an A. I don't think that A belongs.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
side yard setbacks.
A and, oh, what's missing?
Well, B is the next one, isn't it?
Yeah, A and B.
A front yard setback and side yard setbacks of 5 feet and 19. Is it an additional A?
Oh,
And then Article 3.3 C2B.
We can put a comma here. That would help. And side yard
Oh.
setbacks of 5 feet.
yeah, you split them out. Yeah, yep, yep.
Oh, it's 3.3 C2A.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then 2B, yeah, it's kind of, it reads funny, I agree.
Perfect.
I don't know that, I see it says the property is 150 feet from the road, but I thought the property is more like double that from the road.
That's what I thought.
I mean,
On
it's,
the site plan,
it's more like 350 feet.
the one.
Did we have something that says it's 150?
No, you're right. It's 300, at least 344 feet.
Yeah, it's at least that.
And then the 30 feet from that, so it'd be
Yeah, 300 and,
74 feet.
right, right.
Approximately.
Mm-hmm. We're using lot numbers there. Have we,
Yeah, it's lot 22, isn't it?
is it,
Yeah, according to the drawings.
We have it as 24 on the record plat in the township, and their surveyor provided lot 22, so we stuck with lot 24.
Yeah.
That won't cause any confusion?
We can have them correct it when they apply for their zoning certificate.
yeah. And so 24 in this case, in paragraph 1 there, is properly used.
I think so that it is, unless the surveyor comes back. There were at one time some consolidation of lots in this subdivision, and that may be where the confusion is. Again, our files were all saying 24.
Okay.
It's interesting because in the drawing here, Les is wrong, the adjacent ones are 20 and 21.
Yeah.
22 would make more sense, but, you know.
Yeah, the auditor's saying 22 as well. All right, we'll confirm that and make sure that it is corrected.
Well, what should we put here? 22?
I'm actually going to go with 24. I think we should go with 24, and then if for some reason we need to change it, we can.
Okay. And the rest of those was no changes to your, to the staff report? Okay. Stage, dated July 14th, is required, yep. Yep. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, regarding case 20-2017, I move that we approve and journal.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Mr. Zani?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Brad?
Aye.
Aye. One final small thing, folks, it was obvious that we didn't, some of us didn't tour the properties. We should tour those properties and know what's going on before we come in. So let's try and do that the next time, all future times.
The next meeting is on September the 7th, and we are anticipating additional cases, so.
Okay? Any further topics for discussion? We all okay with meeting on the 7th, available? I'm planning to be. Good. We are adjourned.